Hello again, it's Kathleen with Cross Stitch Antiques, and I am here to talk to you about my new releases. We are coming into the month of August, and for the past several years, there's been an online needlework marketplace, which is a wholesale market for designers to present their new releases to shops around the world. And again, I am participating. So last year I released my Julia Rachel de la Mer, which was my one single release for that event. 2025 was a very busy year for me, and now it's time to release many of those workshop pieces that I offered to the attendees at a numerous amount of events I participated in. So those are actually a total of 9 new releases that are now going to be out in general release. So very excited to be able to present those to you now for those of you who might be interested in purchasing them through your local needlework shop coming up this August. Believe it is the 21st through 23rd. So these releases are available through pre-order, so contact your shop. They already have all my information about them. So today I wanted to show you what they are in a little bit more depth. And let's just get started. So first of all, we have a beautiful Bristol Orphanage sampler, antique reproduction, entitled Henrietta 1870. This was my showcase piece for the event at Hobby House Needlework last August, called Useful Work. Henrietta 1870 is a kind of a mid-size Bristol. She measures 266 stitches wide by 382 high and jam-packed with beautiful motifs. And this is truly an heirloom piece. I was very fortunate to acquire it several years ago, and I'm happy to be able to offer it to you now. So Henrietta 1870, actually during that year, there were 4 Henriettas attending the Bristol Orphanage, and so I was able to obtain information which is documented inside this booklet on all 4 of those girls and their family life and what happened to them. So we don't know specifically which of those 4 Henriettas because there was no last name on this. So we can only surmise, and I think I was able to rule out one of them as not being a possibility because she was there for too short a period of time. But the other 3 Henriettas all deserve to be honored with their story as little girls who attended the Bristol Orphanage and possibly could have stitched this gorgeous sampler. So we have a large number of alphabets on this and all kinds of wonderful motifs which we have down in the lower half. So let me show you the actual antique. Here we have Henrietta's sampler. You can see how very intricate and covering almost every single space on the sampler. The stitch count of the threads per inch and the stitches per inch on the background fabric is approximately 68 to 72 stitches or linen threads per inch, linen threads. And it's all stitched over 2 threads. Let me show you my model. Here we have the model I stitched of Henrietta 1870. I just really love stitching these. It's very addicting. You can see side by side, make sure it's right side up, the 2 together. And I stitched mine on 46 count. I believe it was Dirty Teacup. All right, so there you have the first release, and quite an heirloom piece. The next one I have is a spin-off of Henrietta, and it's what I would call a small, based on the antique Bristol sampler. and we call it A Home for Henrietta, and this is my release number 2. A Home for Henrietta is also a very lovely design. It features many of the Bristol Orphanage motifs that you see commonly on Bristol Orphanage samplers. This one I stitched on 40 count, and it measures approximately 117 stitches wide by 115. Finished size on 40 count is about 5.85 by 5.75, and what I have shown it here as fitting into an old Colonial Designs burl box with the top that lifts up, and that size is a 7 by 7. And I have all the ordering information if you are interested in finishing your Home for Henrietta this way. So let me show you the model that I stitched, and here we go. So simple, so not very time consuming whatsoever, and the burl box is just lovely. It's handmade again by Old Colonial Designs, and the lid does open up and you can put whatever you like inside the box. So there we go, that's the inside of the box, and the lid closes down. So we have that available, as well as release number 2. Release number 3 was a anticipatory project for the attendees for useful work. That was like a free gift I gave as they were looking ahead towards the useful event. And this was something that I offered as a free chart, which is now available for purchase, and it's called Martha Schmidt, and the year on this is 1880. And we believe Martha was of German descent, but because the name is so common, it was really hard to track her down. But just a beautiful, beautiful, pretty red sampler that kind of went along the theme with the red samplers I presented at the event. So Martha Schmidt 1880 is an antique sampler reproduction, and this would be my 3rd release for Needlework Marketplace. And she is right here. I will show you what she looks like, the antique. Okay. Beautiful sampler. You gotta love these red samplers. They're just powerful, the statement they make. And you can see Martha did not center her name. You can always adjust that yourself if you like, or you can personalize it using the alphabet and put your own name and your own year on there. But the borders are so pretty, and that rose motif at the top and the lovely lettering. So there you have Martha Schmidt 1880. All right, the 4th release is again for that same event, useful work, that was held at Hobby House in October. And this was also a free gift to attendees from me during one of my presentations. The topic was how we can create useful work with our hands, and this is called Useful Work of Your Hands. So what I did here was I took patterns from an antique pattern album, which is one of those little booklets that I've reproduced in the past that are on my website, which were very popular in the 1850s forward, from which stitchers obtained their patterns and made Bristol samplers with, or all kinds of samplers, even outside the Bristol Orphanage, of course. So these patterns were printed on little tiny paper booklets that folded up like an accordion. And what I did here was I took several of those motifs and several of the bands and just created a little something that you can personalize and make into like a wedding gift or a baby gift. You can use the alphabet enclosed in the chart to put your name and your own year or a child's name, or even a wedding gift and the wedding date. Okay, so again, you're just making something useful as a gift with your hands. And here is the model. Very pretty. It's very simple. Measures 98 by 98, and it uses DMC threads. So you have that complete pattern available to you and able to be personalized. All right, now moving into another event I did last year. I was honored to teach at the Mrs. Parkman's Academy of Needlework in Swindon, England last October, and one of my presentations was about specimen book pages. Now, specimen books were a means of training in needlework. They were taught to the children to learn various skills such as darning and basting and making doll clothes or little sleeves, so that they would learn those skills, and also cross stitch, buttonhole stitch, just a lot of basics. What the girls needed to do was to advance into their techniques by graduating from one type of needlework to another. And I'm going to show you a few examples here, and these are all now available for general release. So there's actually going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 of them that I'm going to show you now. Okay, so let me just get this first. Okay, the way this worked was the girls were again taught to do simple patterns of stitches and buttonhole stitches, or darning or ruffle, or learning how to make a sleeve. And this is actually one of the specimen samples that also included a cross stitch pattern. So what you would get with this, if you were interested in this, is actually the cross stitch pattern alone. So I'm not replicating, you know, how to do the buttonhole stitch and all that, but these are pieces that were actually taken out of the girls' specimen book. The little samples were stitched onto like tissue paper, which probably fell apart over the years, or were taken out and just mounted on this cardboard and sold together at the auction. So this little one here is what you would purchase, and here is the chart. And her name, this girl who did these specimen pages, her name was Mary Ann Slough, S-L-O-U-G-H. And the tiny little sampler is only 154 inches wide by 192, and it's stitched in red. It's very sweet, and it says, "Industry promotes our happiness." And Mary Ann Slough was 11 years old when she stitched her cross-stitch specimen page. Now, another specimen book was from a girl named Anne Frances Kirkpatrick. Now, Anne Frances Kirkpatrick was from Ireland. We believe she was from County Clare, near the town of Ennis. And so you see here a collection of her specimen samples, which were once bound into a book and stitched by her onto tissue paper, and over the years somehow were separated or taken off that tissue paper. But fortunately, they were sold together at the auction house, and I was able to obtain all the pieces to her specimen book. So this chart here is called Anne Frances Kirkpatrick, Words to Live By. And this is 174 by 219. So let me show you the actual antique. And this is the cross-stitch piece that you would purchase and be able to stitch yourself. Very, very colorful. Very pretty. This again is the antique. You might want to know what some of these verses say. Let's see. Very common one up here is, "Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them." The next one is, "Can there be greater folly than to envy the great, since contentment may be found in the lowest state? Health sweetens every enjoyment. Knowledge is power. Cheerfulness is a habit of the mind. Honor the truth." Anne Frances, that was her first name, middle name, from the town of Ennis, which is in Ireland, County Cork, April 1847. So that's one of her pages, one of her samples. And within the collection, I also received another cross-stitch piece. And this one is called Anne Francis, again, same girl. And this chart is of this sampler, which I call the Black Crowns specimen page. Now, I charted the whole thing except these darning patterns up at the top and the running stitch patterns in the booklet. And so it measures 116 by 101. And what you're getting pretty much is from the alphabet down. Okay, so not the top part is what's been reproduced. Again, same girl. You can see she's practicing her various techniques up top. And this one was from the year 1847. Now, I haven't reproduced the other items in her specimen book, but just for the sake of your interest, here are the other things that came in there. So this is a little small bonnet that she made as an exercise in how to put together garment wear. And you can see on here this says class I, which means it was more advanced, like they started with class A and moved up to perhaps IJK, depending on the level of the needlework skills they were learning. A couple other pieces, and these do still have her name on them. Anne F, you can see here, Anne F, Anne Francis from the town of Ennis, 1851. So she accomplished these over a period of years, 1847 through at least 1851. And again, various stitching and needlework techniques, buttonhole, I just don't even know what they all are. So these are something every girl needed to learn how to do as part of their training in needlework. And these were skills that they used to create their own garments or for their own household as they aged into adulthood. And then one more we have in that collection. Sorry, there's a note in here. Okay. This is another example of her work. Here you can see her last name, Anne Francis Kirkpatrick, and she was 11 years old when she did this. Again, little motifs here, and also the alphabet. This one is stitched in wool. Perhaps she was learning how to do binding, but so there's at least 7 pieces in this. But again, this is not reproduced. So getting back to what you would be getting, the 2 available charts are the colorful one, Words to Live By, and the Black Crowns by Anne Francis Kirkpatrick from Ireland. Okay, I hope all that made sense. I did a complete lecture on specimen books, their origins, how they were used to teach children needlework, about the teachers that taught them, and some of the history of them being used and where they started from, both in England and Ireland. So that is also a topic I'm going to be teaching at some guilds upcoming, which, by the way, if you're interested, I do a lot of lectures on historic needlework from my own collection, and I'm available depending on what dates might work. All right, the last item I have is also another specimen page, which I'm going to grab this one second. This one's a little bit fragile, but it shows you what I'm talking about. So this is actually a re-release because it complements the other 4 I just showed you. Ellen Kingscote actually came out in 2022. She's now being re-released because of her connection with the other 4 that I'm presenting in this collection of specimen pages. Ellen Kingscote was an English girl, and her specimen pages were produced probably in around the year 1840 in England. Now, these are still attached to the tissue paper, so I'm going to try my best to hold these up. So just bear with me a second, and you'll kind of get to see what I'm talking about, but they're very fragile. Okay, so here, this is actually tissue paper, and these little samples have been stitched onto the tissue to form like a book, which perhaps was bound in cardboard, at least this one. But you can see here she's, learning how to do knitting. This is her cross stitch piece. There's the buttonhole. There's, oh gosh, all kinds of things. Little hemming stitches. So this sampler here, which is on this page, is one of the ones you're going to get in the booklet. So you're going to get actually two, and they're called the Wisdom and Honor samplers. So very small. This one here measures 83 by 123, and it's just this little cross stitch piece. Very cute and colorful with the alphabet at the top, and it says, "Wisdom is far better than any rubies," Ellen Kingscote. And then the second one appears on this page, again, still attached to the tissue. And this one is the second of the two you're getting. It says, "Honor in the Lord." Okay, it's actually a little bit mixed up the way she did it, but it says, "Honor thy parents in the Lord." It says, "Honor in the Lord thy parents," if you read it left to right. And those are the two in the collection of Ellen Kingscote, which are also available. Very small, simple, colorful samplers. And you can see like some of this is just falling right off the tissue paper. So it's just a treasure that it's still semi-intact after all these years, from 1840 to the present day. All right, so there's one more to make the 9, and this one was released last July, and it was a club piece for the shop called Dying to Stitch in Virginia, and I was very honored to be able to do that once. And the beautiful sampler that they chose for their class club piece was this lovely sampler, and it's called Rachel de la Rue. Rachel de la Rue is a Guernsey Channel Island sampler. She therefore hails from the same place as the very popular Julia Rachel de la Mare, but she is of a different style altogether. This is not Berlin woolwork like Julia was. And it measures 245 by 263. You have a very lovely center fruit bowl, which has some satin stitches around the edging, which I'll show you in a minute. And then you have some really pretty flower motifs encircling. Her name is up at the top. Made by Rachel de la Rue, aged 11 years, in the year 1825. And it does have a lot of ancestry and provenance about Rachel. One of her relatives became a very famous businessman who was instrumental in creating banknotes that are still being used today. So, very famous uncle that she had. So let's take a look at Rachel and her antique. So let's see, here we go. Rachel's frame is very large and very heavy. All right, I'm gonna hold this up. This is the antique of Rachel de la Rue. Good look at this. Just lovely colors, lots of roses and pinks and greens. Scattered flower motifs. This was not a very long stitch at all. It was very enjoyable. Separate little motifs, kept you going. The border is pretty simple and just a really lovely symmetrical layout. Okay, and then here's the model I stitched, which is just as pretty. And I used the linen from Dying to Stitch. This is 40 count Patriot's Brew, and the finished piece on 40 count measures about 12 inches by 13 inches. And the threads I used were all Weeks Dye Works. So there is, like I said, interesting history about Rachel and her family included. And let's just hold these two up together if possible. There you see the beautiful Rachel de la Rue and her antique. Okay, so 9 releases. Online Needlework Marketplace takes place for the wholesale shopping in August, approximately the 21st to the 24th. So if you're interested in any of these, contact your local needlework shop and they would be happy to take your pre-order. I'm also going to be posting something on my social media so you can see them a little bit closer upper, so to speak. But I'm very honored and thankful that I had the opportunity to present these historical samplers in the year 2025. And I am happy now to be able to release them so everyone can enjoy them. So again, I thank you so much for supporting my business, Cross Stitch Antiques. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Take care.